Well, hello, friends.
Welcome to the Ladybird browser update for August 2023. The first thing that I want to mention today is that I have hired a second full-time engineer. His name is Andrew Castor. He is 28 years old from Denver, Colorado, and he's been with the Serenity OS project since fall of 2019. And Andrew is now going to work with me and Alex on Ladybird full-time. So very, very excited about this. Next, let's talk about libjs. So in the last couple of months, we've been moving away from the AST tree walk interpreter, and I'm happy to report that it is now completely removed, and we are a bytecode VM only. There are still a bunch of cleanups that we can do, just because we don't have to deal with multiple interpreters anymore. So some of that work remains, but it has been a very, very nice thing to just simplify and streamline the engine around this. In libweb, we've seen a whole bunch of nice font improvements this month, especially with WAF2 support. WAF is a web open font format thing, and WAF2 is a better compressed version of the format that does a bunch of interesting things to make font files really small. And Luke did a partial implementation and then handed over to me, and I finished the implementation, and now we can load these kind of CSS web fonts. So that has been very cool. And we also got 2D canvas context support for font, text align, and text baseline, which means that you can now change the font being used on 2D canvas. And that was implemented by Bastian. So thank you, Bastian, for improving our canvas. The default font is now serif. We had a sans serif default font forever for some reason, but all other major browsers, if you don't specify a font, they will use a serif font by default. So now we behave the same way. And something that I did that seemed important was we now isolate font caches per page. Previously, if one page would load a web font, like a WAF2, for example, that web font would now be available to all other pages, even though they didn't ask for that. And this has now been isolated. So there's a single font cache per page, or per document, actually, which gives us better isolation. Okay. Sam has added a lot of new CSS pseudo classes this month, as you can see here. I'm not even gonna say all of them, but he went and added code generation, so it's much easier to add pseudo classes now. You don't have to update 5 different files. And because it's now so easy, he was also able to implement a whole bunch of them that we were missing. So thank you, Sam, for continuing to add code generation and for adding all these new pseudo classes. We've added a bunch of new APIs this month to the web platform implementation. We added visual viewport, or that was me, which is an API for inspecting sort of where the scrollable viewport is currently on the page if you scroll down or to the side. Luke implemented performance observer, which is mostly used by ads and trackers and stuff like that, but even so, it is important to have. And then Shannon implemented HTML form controls collection and radio node list. And finally, Tim did create object URL and I guess also revoke object URL. And the way that these are implemented is that they're not fully accessible. Like if you create a blob URL in one tab, it's not going to be accessible in other tabs because our blob storage is ephemeral and it's per tab at the moment. In the future, it should be accessible globally in the user agent cluster, I believe. But for now, we just have a per tab solution just so that we can test it at all. So thank you everybody who added new APIs for sure. Sam, by the way, also implemented CSS Outline. And I have a picture here of a demo. And if you're not familiar with Outline, it's similar to Border, but an outline doesn't take up space in the layout. So it's very, very handy when you're trying to make little tests And in my videos, people have been telling me in the comments forever that I should use outline instead of border, because when I use border, I'm disturbing the layout. And I always had to respond saying, yeah, I would, but we don't support outline. Now I can stop making this excuse because we support it. So thank you, Sam, for implementing CSS Outline. We also got CSS Object Fit this month. It was implemented by Tobias, and these are the 4 keywords that we support. I think there's a 5th one, but we don't support that yet, so I don't have a picture of it. But basically, it controls how an image is displayed inside of a rectangle that is too small or too large to contain the image exactly. So then there are like different strategies for fitting the image inside of the designated area for that image. So thank you, Tobias, for implementing CSS Object Fit.
Hey, the first thing that I would like to mention is garbage collector graph dumper tool. So before its introduction, if you wanted to find out why a specific garbage collected object was leaking, there was no tool available for that purpose. But now you can obtain a JSON that provides information about each allocated cell, including its address, class name, and addresses of visited edges from a cell. And additionally, if a cell creates a GC root, there will be information about its origin. And as for now, verbose information with the exact source location is only available for roots created by save function, as the primary source of leaks at the moment. However, in the future, we might also want to include source location for other entities such as handles. Another thing I would like to mention is updates to libweb testing infrastructure. Before this month, we had 2 types of tests, which are layout tests and text tests. And in this month, we added support for ref tests. Runner for ref tests takes 2 HTML files, where one of HTMLs is a reference and then compares screenshots of them. And ref tests allow us to start testing painting, which was not possible before with layout tests or text tests. Also, besides that, now we have internal JavaScript API, which is called HitTest, that allows us to start writing text test for hit testing code, which is cool. And besides this thing, I also did a bunch of grid layout bug fixes and added support for 2 new CSS properties, which are grid autoflow that defines whether column or row needs to be created to place next auto position item, and place self, which is a shorthand for align self and justify self properties. And that's it from me for today. Thank you.
Well, hello friends. Let's talk a little bit about some of the build changes that have been made to Ladybird over the last month. So I made some changes to how we load web content in the web content process. Previously we were using some cute networking classes always to load URLs and open WebSockets, and I added some build rules to let us use the Serenity Request Server and WebSocket server in Lagom, and hooked it up to the Qt UI with an enable Lagom networking command line flag. If you want to try that out, we can do that, and it'll use our our TLS implementation and our crypto stuff as well. It does have some problems with common ciphers that are used by some websites, so you might have to defer back to the Qt networking if that doesn't work, or submit a patch, add more ciphers. On the audio front, Zaggy added a Pulse Audio backend for libaudio, so now when libpulse is available, we'll default to using Pulse Audio to talk to your Linux audio server, or on macOS if you have that installed. In order for that to work, Zaggy had to dig into our multi-threading utilities for libcore and libthreading and the web content to make that happen. So that was much appreciated. So thanks, Zaggy, for that. And I'm sure that there's room for more audio backends on other platforms as we move forward. I went through and removed the Qt dependency from our helper processes when possible. So things like the SQL Server and the web content server and whatever else. If we don't actually need to use Qt to talk to a Qt component like Qt Multimedia for audio or Qt Networking for networking, we will not even link Qt into those helper processes. So that helps us move towards a world where we only use Qt in the Qt UI Chrome, and it opens the door for other UI Chromes to be able to just use those helper processes without having to patch them and make their own binary versions of it. There's more on that in a bit, but I also made some changes to the install rules so that if you install the Ladybird application on macOS, it'll create a relocatable app bundle in the install prefix. If you try to, open or use Xcode on the app bundle that's in the build directory, it still doesn't quite work. But the one in the install directory, you can use things like instruments on that, and it'll be happy if you move it around or drag it into applications or whatever else. Just a small side note that if you try to use the experimental GN build I talked a little bit about last month, it'll create an app bundle automatically. But the CMake rules are a little bit more complicated. So because of all these build changes that have gone in, it's now possible to create out-of-tree non-Qt UI Chromes. We have two that I know of. Sergey started his GTK4 Chrome. It's still out of tree. It uses the latest GTK4 and libadwaita features, so it's a little bit difficult to build on a standard distro. Takes a little bit of elbow grease. There is a Flatpak build for it and such, but if you're interested in checking that out, come join us in the Ladybird GTK direct channel on Discord, and I'm sure Sergey will be happy to tell you all about his most recent work on that Chrome. Also, Tim Flynn added a AppKit Chrome, which uses AppKit Coca Carbon as written in Objective-C, and that is now in tree this month, so it was created and merged in tree. You can talk about that one in the Ladybird Coca channel on Discord. And if you just want to run that on macOS, because this is kind of macOS specific, there's just a simple command that Tim added as well, where you can just run Ladybird AppKit and it'll build that version instead of the Qt version, so you can try it out. One thing that the AppKit Chrome is missing is that it cannot play any audio, because we need a audio toolkit backend for audio on macOS. That is, I think I have a work in progress one, but if you want to beat me to the punch, I won't be upset. Yeah, so that's the latest on UI Chromes. We have Sergey's GTK4 Chrome, and we have the AppKit Chrome in tree. So, come chat with us on Discord about those. And as my last thing here, I'm going to demo the AppKit Chrome a little bit. So I'm going to open my screen recording here, and let's take a look. So here I have Ladybird and Safari open side by side on my MacBook with apple.com here, and it looks pretty good. We are using the default Coca and AppKit components here in the Ladybird Chrome. And part of the work that Tim did this month was he added a JavaScript console, and he kind of unified the JavaScript console implementation between the Serenity Chrome, the Qt Chrome, and the AppKit Chrome that he added. So hopefully when Sergey gets around to adding that to his GTK Chrome or any other Chromes people add, it's pretty easy to just plug that into the existing WebView implementation. Let's see. So, yeah, we also have the tab view looks pretty similar to Safari because it's the same, and we also have a tab overview. This one doesn't quite look the same as Safari because they're using a custom widget that has that new tab button from here, but I'm sure we can improve that over time. New tab works about the same as Safari as well, although the new tab page doesn't look quite as polished. So another thing that Tim added to this Chrome this month is that he added view source in a tab rather than a window. I think both the Qt Chrome and the Serenity Chrome view source in a separate window, but this one opens a tab. It does take a hot minute to load, so I think, yeah, here I opened the one for the new tab window, and you can see that Tim added some syntax highlighting to HTML here, but not for CSS or JavaScript yet. And here we can see the JavaScript or the GitHub source. It does take a hot minute to scroll through, so I'm sure we can work on the performance of that. But yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about for the AppKit Chrome. So this looks pretty sweet. Looks a little bit more polished than the Qt Chrome, in my opinion. And it's coming along nicely. So thanks, Tim, for adding that. And hopefully we can keep improving the cross-platform nature of the browser and keep centralizing the components so that everybody can have a version of Ladybird that looks at home on their platform. So thank you very much. That's all I had to say this month.
So, of course, let's take a look at some live websites with Ladybird just so we can see where we're currently at. Something I've worked on a bit this month is a local newspaper where I live. This is Hallands Nyheter, a Swedish news site. And it's a little bit slow to load, but once it does load, you can see that we do a pretty decent job with fonts, with layout. It's very slow to scroll, especially while images are still loading. We do have a lot of work to do with that. But if you are familiar with Swedish newspapers, you would recognize that this is a pretty standard looking one. The logo of the site is missing here, and these pop-up menus are not exactly in the right place. So we do have things to fix still, but it is pretty sweet to be able to read my local news in Ladybird. Another site that I worked on was the gaslightanthem.com, one of my favorite bands. They recently got back together after a long break and wanted to visit their website and found that a bunch of things were not working, and now they do. So in particular, I had to fix high resolution image loading because we were loading very low resolution images. You couldn't even read the text here on their tour plans. So this was a nice one to work on. We do still have some problem here with SVGs not scaling correctly, but still it was cool to work on that. And apparently we are also complaining about JavaScript stuff. And then, of course, one of our sponsors, Onemakler, which was the main reason that I started looking at WAF2 fonts this month. And we now load the WAF2 that they use here for their main title font, although it is supposed to be bolder, but this is I think it's called variable font. So it's one font file with multiple weights all in one, and we don't yet know how to sort of construct the alternative weights like bold and and semi-bold and whatnot. So we need to learn how to do that in our implementation, but at least we're loading the right WAF2 file. So that is progress on the site. Alex told me about a Belarusian developer news website called devby.io. I don't understand what it says on here, but apparently he tests with this site every now and then, and I can confirm that it does look pretty much correct compared to the way it looks in Firefox or other browsers, so that is really cool. And it's also nice to see that we're doing a decent job with something that isn't just a Latin alphabet text. And finally, I wanted to take a quick look at chess.com, which is starting to shape up kind of nicely. At least the front page, you can see we're even loading these video thumbnails here and everything. Once you try to log in, or if you try to play a game against a computer, things fall apart a little bit. So, oh, there we go. Falls apart quite a bit. So we still have work to do on chess.com, but the main page of the site is starting to look pretty good. So that is cool. Also, these buttons don't look entirely right. Anyway, let's conclude the live demo there for today. And that's everything that we had to show you here today. So thank you so much for checking in and staying up to date with Ladybird. If you want to come chat or participate in development, you'll find us all on the Serenity OS Discord server, which is where we congregate and communicate. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors and all of our contributors and everybody who cares about Ladybird. It's a very exciting time, and I'm really excited about the future. Really looking forward to it. So thanks for today, and we'll see you all next time. Bye. I'll go on 3, okay?
Wait. Let me try to.
You want to practice?
Well, hello, friends. Well, hello. I have never ever said before that.
All right. You have never said it before?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Let's just try.
Okay.
All right. So here's how I say it. Well, hello, friends. Something like that.
Well,
Sure.
hello, friends.
There you go. That's pretty good. All right.